Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fourth in the Turmoil series. I want to welcome you all for taking time out of your day. We've got some great panelists today, and I think you're going to enjoy our talk about community. Um, we'll get them all on camera now. So let's welcome Meara, Pooch, and Nathan East. Um, so just a few things before we start. Um, this is the fourth in a series. Pooch was on our first one, How to Survive in an Industry in Turmoil, and we brought him back. Um, we try to be very interactive with these webinars. So please chat a lot because we will talk back with you. And we will end everything with a Q&A. So if you could take your Q&A and actually put it in the Q&A little icon rather than in the chat, because I'm afraid I'll get lost in the chat. So we're ready to go. And we're going to do a poll. We'll start a poll now at the beginning. And if we can have that come up, and while we do that, I'm going to introduce our panelists. So we're going to start with Ken Pooch Van Druten. He is front of house behind such acts as Jay-Z, Justin Bieber, and Linkin Park. He's had more than a dozen live sound engineer accolades. He's including a Tech Award, 8 Tour Guide Magazine Engineer of the Year Award, and a Parnelli Award. Meara McLaughlin is executive director of MusicPortland, and that's Portland, Oregon. It's a nonprofit grassroots member organization representing Portland's independent music scene. And then we have Nathan East. Nathan's been on more than 2,000 recordings and is considered to be one of the most recorded bass players in the history of music. He's a founding member of the contemporary jazz group Foreplay, and he's worked with just about everybody, including Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Phil Collins, Whitney Houston, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Daft Punk, and I could go on. So those are our panelists for today.
I'm just going to go. Wow, that's amazing. Bye, guys. Just hang out with Nathan.
With a name drop.
So we'll give you a couple more minutes to finish out the poll. And if you have questions, you can start putting questions in there in the Q&A already. So, and we have people from all over. We have different countries, different parts of the US. It's very cool. So I appreciate all of you coming. So let's go ahead and end this poll. And let's see what the results were. So we have, it's kind of split. So there's a lot of other. Live sound, recording engineer, some musicians, educators, students. And then let's see, what do you want to learn today? How to expand my role and become a thought leader in my community. So you guys keep that in mind. And how to connect with people virtually and how to create my own community. Cool. Okay.
Cool.
So let's start. Being a part of a community has always been very important. And I didn't realize how important it was until my community got shut down. And then I realized that that is so much a part of my life. And it was hard to make that change and be able to connect virtually. So what I'd like to do is start with each of you and just find out what type of community you had and what you've had to do to change it in this 2D world. So Pooch, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
Toured all the time. You're part of many communities. So what was it like for, and what have you had to do to be able to have community during this time?
I realized right away, part of being a touring guy is that you kind of have two families, and one of them is your touring family, and not having interaction with that touring family felt really strange. And so right away when our business got completely shut down, I realized that there's got to be some ways to connect to people. And for me, that meant early on, and still till now, is getting together with a bunch of people on Zoom calls, that are all friends that have toured together, as a family. And I try to connect with them on a regular basis. There's also a few places, that guys have set up, and gals have set up, mix master hangout, which is about 20 different kind of engineer guys that all hang out on a Thursday night every 2 weeks. So it's kind of been really interesting to create our own community by having meetings, every week or every couple of weeks, to kind of just stay connected. One of the hardest things that I have being stuck at home and having my business shut down is no feeling of artistry, no feeling of creation, because that's really what we do as sound people is have this ability to connect with musicians and give what they're giving to us off of the stage and creating that vision for that artist. And so having that taken away, I had to really kind of shift into some other things. And my personal shift was to create a bunch of different YouTube channels that have different things. One is a YouTube channel that has guests that come and visit, and we talk about guests from the music business in general, tour managers, front of house guys, legendary front of house guys. We just had Beeford Jones on there. And just chatting about audio and this business and talking about it was enough to have that feeling of kind of creation and all those kind of things. And the reason that I thought that it would be great as a YouTube channel rather than just us talking to friends would be that hopefully we can spread that community and have people come in and be, a fly on the wall to watch that kind of stuff. So more than ever, I feel like this is the time to figure out how to create your own community and also how to be a part of certain communities. So certainly, if you want to be a part of my community, there's two YouTube channels that I'm a part of that I know Stephanie can post the link to. But come on, I would love it. We want musicians and you guys are all my friends. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I've shifted, and we can go to more detail of that if you want, but I just wanted to kind of start off with that.
No, that's good. Okay. And since you were talking about creating community, Meara, I know that you created a community from the ground with MusicPortland, and you started it before the pandemic. And it's you're out there, it's a grassroots, and there was a lot of interaction and movement. So how have you been able to adapt to the shutdown and still keep that community vibrant in Portland?
Yeah, we launched in September of 2018, and the industry, like so many in towns, smaller towns or anywhere, people had kind of broken apart. Even the previous sense of community that I think Portland was famous for had kind of broken apart because everybody was at home, head down, making rent. So we pulled it all together, and our mission was to unite, defend, and amplify all parts of the music ecosystem here in a way that had never been done before. And unite was absolutely the core of it because, not to get preachy, but I'm all about, like human connection and gatherings of people of common interest is the most powerful thing in the world. And if you're faced with some common problems, then gathering together is a political act. It really is saying we have more in common than we have apart. And the world is telling us in a million different ways why we are not connected. And it really, in the beginning, was much more about building community in an organization that's effectively a trade organization and now also a C3 nonprofit. But it was about getting people together, because once you got them together in the physical world, we'd have 250 people gather every month. It was musicians and sound engineers and producers and record labels and replication houses and heavy metal and hip hop and everybody would come together and stand in a room and say, damn, there's a lot of us. And I have not met somebody I didn't have something in common with in this room. And that was watching the aha moment for people and realizing what a human need it is for people to feel that was remarkable. And so then when the shutdown happened, the day the music died, we moved onto Zoom, which my corporate background, I'm like, oh no, I'm there again. Damn it. God. Um, and but and that it's taken some time, but we did some things called huddles, which are just a meeting format to say there's no topic, just production people come together and huddle. And for us it was about uniting around common industry, but also around geography. And I know a lot of the other folks talk to other things, but we all feel helpless. And I think the minute you are presented with an opportunity to connect with other people in a meaningful and deeper way than commerce or your own personal ambition, like you're actually connecting, it is the most powerful thing in the world. And as people come to recognize that, huge change and opportunity and creation can happen.
Yes, that's a very good way to say that. So Nathan, we talked earlier in the week and Meara pointed out that your community is the world. So,
Worldwide
so
community,
yeah, so you travel a lot. Usually, you have an artist community, you have a fan base. How has that changed now that you're not traveling at all? How do you keep that active and invigorated and moving forward now that you're on screens?
yeah. And I think about a year ago, we all were faced with this, like, now what do we do? We got this, the entire community of the world had the one order: we were going to shut down. And the saying goes, the secret to life is how you deal with plan B. And I think we've all been dealing with plan B. Matter of fact, a lot of our plan B has turned into plan A, I think, for a lot of us over the year.
Yeah.
And it really, like, when it started, you thought, okay, well, this is going to be a temporary thing, we'll be back. And then I just noticed that, okay, the tours just started to get it shut down. They held off as long as they could. Promoters, agents, pretty soon, up, we got to cancel, so literally I watched everything that my entire touring summer was booked, and I had tours all over the world, and so everything got shut down. And the first thing I thought is, this is a great opportunity for the world to kind of be on the same exact page. I mean, if you owned a private jet, you couldn't go anywhere. We were all kind of on an equal level playing field. And so, the first thing I thought is, this is where we all live in the moment and start creating ways to complete, completely reinvent something that we do every day. And so, you know, since I was home with the family, I discovered rooms at the house that I didn't even know I had, from being gone. So I always kept a suitcase packed in rotation. I'd come home and never had really time to unpack. So for me, it was an opportunity to, first of all, get to spend some quality time with my family that I never would have had, in my life. So instead of running out the door, we're together, we're in the kitchen. And actually, I was able to sort of turn my living room into a place where my son and I, Noah, plays organ and keyboard. So we get to play together, and we're in, every night taking advantage of just that opportunity and coming up with music and just having a good time playing. So that was a way to create a community at home that, for
Right.
me, I was not neglecting, but, I was trying to balance work and being home. And this was an opportunity to really solidify my family community at home. And my siblings, we all have a group text page that we speak every day on. And so we're able to communicate. And then as far as the world community, all of the social media platforms that are available to us, I think you see a lot more people. The first thing I noticed was, everybody was doing live streams and totally this kind of connected world. And I did a lot webinars with friends in England and all over the world. So, you know, we have these ways now that I call Plan B, and I'll be glad to get back to Plan A, where we're not communicating through a screen.
Well, why don't we talk about creating a community or becoming part of a community? So Nathan, why don't we start with you? As a musician, are you able to connect with other artists and still perform online? I mean, what do you do? How do you keep that community going?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I discovered was Zoom is not made for music. I mean,
That's for sure.
we've tried to, and I've been, with other artists in England, and we're just kind of trying to do music over the, using Zoom as the platform to sort of make it feel like we're in the same room together. Um, so that's a challenge, but I have been able to connect a lot of my friends. Um, Dave Koz made a virtual album, and he just sent tracks around, and I think it's one of his best albums. And it's sort of one of those things where, he just called his friends. Oh, you want to do it? And people were around, and so you get the track, you do your thing, you send it back, and he put together a beautiful album. And then that's what a lot of people have been doing lately. For me, a lot of uh, my friends have been sending me tracks, and we've been just doing it remotely.
Hey, Nathan, are you hip to a thing called audio movers? That's a great tool.
Okay, I've heard about audio movers, and I think I need to know about it because
Yeah, it's really awesome. Like I have produced some vocal sessions from afar. It's basically a way to do high level streaming audio in real time. And right now, currently, I think they offer only in stereo, but like coming soon is like 32 tracks of that. And so we may be able to have real time audio going back and forth from things. And so check it out, audiomovers.com. It's really great.
audio mover. Okay, and I'm going to be calling you on after the
Do that. It's fantastic.
tutorial.
And
Yeah,
Stephanie, why don't you put that in the chat in case anybody's interested in that?
that sounds great.
So,
Yeah.
Meara, what do you think some of the best practices are for creating a community or finding a community to be part of? And is there a right community? Is there a wrong community to get into?
Um, that I think that, well, in Portland, and I think in a lot of places, creative types they see a problem, they're like, this is a problem, or this is something, or this is a lack, I'm going to fix it. And they create, it's a DIY activist town here, and people are like, I'm going to create a group to do this. And the problem is, without the curiosity to find existing groups, you create diluting groups that become lots of little silos, which confound the problem of community. So I would say to people, first off, really look hard and look for a community that doesn't look exactly like you. Look for a community that looks different, is a different genre, maybe you're a bass player, and you wouldn't necessarily look to an organization that included musicians and sound engineers, but that might be the right place for you. Be open to it, because know that if you join a community of people that are exactly like you, it's a limited sound loop. You need the feedback and the opportunity and the expansion that comes from, joining in something that maybe you don't lead, and um, and being a member of a community rather than a creator or leader. And I think that's, trying to create sort of a flat organization where everybody has an equal voice is important, because otherwise you've got a leader and then you've got followers, and that isn't truly community. Community is something where everybody feels respected and part of it. And yeah, so I would say create or join first rather than create. um, I don't know, does that answer the question?
It does. What do you think, Pooch? Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, first off, just let me say that I think of the positive spin. Now, granted, there's nothing like us being together physically, because humans need, human interaction, and there's so many other senses besides Zoom that we all need as a community when you join together. But the positivity of what's happened because of this is that all of a sudden I'm connected to people that like I kind of knew, but now I know them, and it's actually expanded my community tenfold. And I know that when we finally do go back, I will now have that person is no longer a name, they're a face. I've seen them on Zoom chats. I've seen them in, my community of YouTube channel. I've seen those people, and now I know that when I see them out there in the wild, we're all friends. So literally, I feel like the good part about this is that I've gained hundreds, literally hundreds of new people that work in this industry that I may have known their name, but didn't really. A perfect example is what you do, Karen, and hooking up, everybody kind of in a meeting that you have, that you do weekly, where like I wouldn't have interaction with big name producer people. I'm a live sound guy, and because of your thing, I'm having interaction with Ivana, and people that are really well known in this industry that I knew, and they kind of knew me. But now, like, I feel like when we go to the NAMM show, hopefully next year, I could say to her, hey, let's go to dinner, because we're friends now.
Right.
So that it's kind of an artifact of what's happened that is completely positive, and I would have never had this not happen. So I think there's really positive things to that, and we should exploit that. Like, we should continue in that as long as we're still here, pretty much stuck at home. Those are the kind of things, like try to get in communities that you wouldn't normally, circles of people that you wouldn't normally be in,
Right.
and I think you once you expand that, it's going to be great when we go back to the real living.
So Nathan, do you have anything to add onto that?
Speaking of the NAMM show, that was the last really big gig that I did. We were on stage out in the plaza there with Earth, Wind and Fire, and
Yeah.
30,000 people were lined in the parking lot, and we were having the best time. And you never would have known that, like, okay, this is the last gig we're going to do for over a year, like this, and there won't be a NAMM show next year. I mean, who would have known? So
Who would have thought?
it really, to me, brings to the point that we never know what's around the corner. We still don't know what's around the corner, and we don't know if we're going to go back to what we did, or if we're going to go forward to a new, what normal will be the new normal.
Right.
So for me, I'm just trying to use every day as an opportunity to take the moment, live in the moment, and try to figure out what I should be doing right then and there, And for me, again, it's, if I'm here and I have an opportunity to make music, then that's what I choose to do,
So you connect where you can and take advantage of that opportunity.
I also want to point out, Nathan said something earlier that I thought was really great about his own family community has had a special experience, right? Like, I think that a lot of us in the music industry ignore our families. Honestly, we work our asses off because it takes a lot of work. It takes hours and hours to get to a higher level of, being able to work in this industry. And, I know from myself, I spent 30 years spending maybe a month with my family a year. I was on the road 10 months a year, 11 months a year. And that's just not fair. And the artifact of this also is, despite the financial insecurity, that is something that, we're all kind of dealing with. But the fact that I got to spend this last year with my family was challenging, but exciting, because they got to know me better. In fact, so much so that, my wife says some things to me like, I've never heard you say that before, or I've never, and that's because I'm away from her so much. She doesn't even see some of those things. So I think, we should embrace this time to expand on that community as well. I think what Nathan said earlier was really great.
Yeah.
When I was, I feel your pain because it's been 40 years. I have not stopped traveling, and like I go through suitcases like like they're nothing, but when I knew that, when I realized that I was too much of a road dog was when my kids were little. I came home one year and they had drawn a picture of the family and I wasn't in the picture,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's like, oh no. So that's when I realized that, I had to step it up. And now that they're, they're young adults, it even means a lot more to establish the family community and really them know what I'm all about, and for me to know what they're all about. It's just it's been a gift.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, your relationship is forever changed, right? Like, you know,
Forever.
moving forward, we're going to go back to maybe what we do, and we are going to go back to maybe working 10, 11 months a year. But I know so much more about my relationship with my wife that I think it's forever changed for good, for the good, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, again, uh, we have a better understanding about our community, our family community, because of this gift of the time, you know. So um, for me, I turned it into, I turned the lemons into lemonade, you know.
Yeah. That's what you
That's
have
what
to
you
do.
have to do.
Yeah.
So what about students who are just graduating, who have had to be virtual students for a year? So they don't, you know, they're looking for jobs virtually, they're doing internships virtually. How do they get into these communities? Any ideas?
I mean, I'll take it. I think that they are such a wealth. There's actually a lot of conversation because the kind of centrality of the pandemic has really focused a lens on local music organizing. There's a great group, Music Policy Forum, that is kind of democratizing city organization of music ecologies. And so it's becoming a real field of study, I think, for some students. And even those that came through maybe with a production degree or some kind of sonic arts degree, to get involved in your local ecology is absolutely the best way to be meeting other people virtually and ultimately in the physical world. But you know, to network, to learn, to find mentors, to find kindred spirits. And because you're young and don't need to sleep much, it means that you know, the goal with any community, I know, you know, the question will be asked, I'm sure, you know, what's the best way to participate? Give more than you ask, always. In it, when you're in a community, be aware of what you, if you're brand new, you have something to give. And whether that's, you know, the metaphorical equivalent of stuffing envelopes or the kind of curiosity that you bring to it to somebody who maybe has been doing it forever. Everybody has something to bring to these communities. And the best communities are the ones that listen. But definitely, if there's anybody listening from Portland that's a young student with lots of energy and no need for sleep, please contact me. All of these organizations are working really hard for, you know, less money than musicians make, which tells you how little, you know, it can be. But you know, it is about engaging and giving rather than engaging to take.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Well, my opinion is that if you're a student coming out into this, sorry, uh, first off, but no, I mean, I think it's an opportunity. There are a lot of people that have pivoted and shifted to online, you know, explaining things online, and you know, so take this opportunity to absorb all that information. I think there is way more stuff out there in the internet of learning things than there ever has been. But I will also say, do whatever it takes right now to make it through, whatever that means, you know, working for Amazon, working for UPS, whatever it is, because when the floodgates open, there will be 4 times as much opportunity as there was prior to COVID. So literally students, you guys are there's gonna be people begging you to come work with them, because every single band and every person is going to want to see live events. And so I think there's going to be so much opportunity. So poise yourself, put yourself in the right place at the right time to be the one that gets chosen in that flood. But for now, like, do whatever it takes and learn.
You guys, Meara and Nathan, you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so what is your best advice for people trying to create community right now? So why don't we start, all of you, if you could chime in on this, we'll start with Meara.
The best way to create community. there's always been something. One of the challenges with my community has been that, we are fiercely DIY. Portland is not a big sort of like industry town at the top end. We're an incubator and kind of a tastemaker and a place where people pride themselves on, being the iconoclast that breaks all the rules. So I think that part of the challenge with that has been getting people to say, "Oh, I'm going to be a joiner." They're like, "No, I did it myself. I created my business, my music business myself." So there's a little bit of, kind of hesitation about joining. Everybody should disabuse themselves of that. Everybody should just go like, "Okay, that's not a thing." Um, but I think that having common threats is a great way to build community. I mean, COVID has really bound us together across the world, across industries, within cities in ways that we couldn't have anticipated, and that's the hopeful part. I mean, I think Neva did such an incredible job of organizing venues at a national level, and Nita did it with their crew, and state organizations have done it, and city organizations like mine. I think finding a challenge or a threat and unifying under it. I mean, it's the social media equivalent of asking a super provocative question. Everybody jumps in. And so I think find out what's happening in your market or in your, community of people, find something to rally around. And that definitely, I think, brings people to the table in an open-hearted way.
Great. Okay. Nathan, your best advice for people trying to create community.
Well, I think even at our disposal right now are like text chats where I know all the guys in the band, we have like a text. So when we have to take care of a little business, we just do that. So like the people that we were dealing with it when before we got shut down, I've created lots of different text chats, family, band, um, professional, just for fun. And then so each one can kind of, you know, what are we going to do on Sunday? And my kids, they go to UC Berkeley, and again they're online, but um, their mentor and one of the folks that works at the Alumni Association organized every Sunday that they would have a Zoom meeting, and they would just catch up and see how everybody was doing. And then, it was just a good way for everybody to say, oh, how are you handling this? So at our disposal, I think, starting with text, and then um, I've just been exploring a little bit of the Facebook groups, and there's some good groups there that, you could join, and, where you can learn guitar or what have you, and so, um, one of the things I wanted to do is learn some new technology, recording technology, and step up to, learn a little bit more about engineering, which I've had to learn to do since, I'm not in the room with musicians
Right. Right.
here.
Yeah.
You have to be creative too, and just kind of say, okay, where am I going to go today to figure out how I can get into that community?
Yeah. Okay, Pooch.
Well, the thing that the elephant in the room is the mental health aspect of this, right? There are, I know, a bunch of roadies that are not having a good time right now and are not doing well. And I try once a week to choose somebody in my community, my previous community, real community of touring or whatever. I look through my address book and I say, I wonder how that guy's doing. I wonder how she's doing. You know what? I should give them a call and see what's going on, because I know how it makes me feel when someone calls me to just say, how are you? Are you okay? I think that's more important than anything now. And what that does is create the sense of a connection and community that you have on a one-on-one basis. And I think that's just as important as spending time online, doing Zoom calls. And, I don't know about you, but I just get exhausted with all of this. It's just not the same as having a group of people be around each other. The feeling of being on Zoom or, whatever, social media exhausts me sometimes. So the one-on-one thing I think is really important too, and that is community too. And that is also you talking with someone, them saying, hey, how you doing? Well, whatever. Have you talked to so-and-so? That's a mutual friend. And then it kind of spider webs into, a thing where had I not called that person, then maybe those 7 people I'm talking about wouldn't have communicated with each other. So I think it's just important that during this time period, especially, like I said, I look through my address book and I go, I bet they're not having a good time. Let's call them and see how they're doing. And the important thing in all of that is when they say, I'm not doing well, you don't have to fix it. You just have to listen, right? Okay. So just say, I'm here for you, man. Dump it on me. What do you got? And that kind of communication, I think when we get out of this, are going to make us better communicators, and so, that's just my advice is it's great to be part of all these social media communities, but expand your family community too. Your touring family is what I mean, not your, home family. Yeah, that's what I think.
One of the things I like to act on is, somebody pops into your head, you haven't spoken with them for forever or whatever. And I like to try to act on that, oh, why did they pop into me? And
Right.
I've been just picking up the phone and calling, and
Yep.
the other day I called a friend and he literally said, your call couldn't come at a better time, and so, like, timing is perfect. And you don't realize, but these are like these little signals that you get, and like Quincy Jones says, when you quiet and listen, you can hear God whispering to you.
That's right. Meara, did you want to say something?
No, I am just applauding like crazy, jumping up and down and applauding because on the inside, Pooch, on the inside. But yeah, no, I think, the other thing that I have told in interviews and stuff, when people say, what can we do for musicians? It's like, if there's a song or there's something that has really meant something in your life, it's really moved you, has saved you, has comforted you, that, I had literally Spotify sent it to me and said, you've listened to this artist's album 17,000 times. And I had. It just, like, it got me through. Make sure the artists and the producers and the record label know, like it is a moment when we're not doing other stuff. As a listener, as a set of ears with a heart in the middle, contact people, let them know what the music means to you, even if you don't know them. It will get to them, and it does matter, and it's why we do what we do. And I think the relationship to a fan community is another piece of it that we can think about. How do you as a fan communicate to somebody who is down, who has had, existential crisis galore, and they've lost all the feedback loop? Give them something personal, and it helps you. It makes you feel better to know that that impact on you has been communicated.
I don't think that people realize how much it means to some people. You know what I mean? Like, you don't realize that how much words matter, right? And so you may not realize that your little, hey, how you doing, whatever, may be, life changing for that person. The fact that the drummer for Iron Maiden, which is the band that I'm currently working with, calls me every, couple of months or whatever, just to say, hey, how you doing, mate? Everything good? Means so much to me. And I know he doesn't know that. He's just calling and saying, hey, what's going on? But to me, it's huge, right? It's like, oh man, I will go to the ends of the earth for this band because there's a rock star that is asking how I am, right? So I think it's there's things that you don't realize, and words matter.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, Pooch, you know, we don't have to fix everything, but I think the fact that we're there to just be to listen, you know, and I've had several friends that have, you know, were loved ones, several friends that have lost lives because of the virus, and it's been kind of an emotional roller coaster ride. And what do you even say, you know? So I just try to be there to listen and whatever they want to say. And again, there's no way to fix this. It's just if we're here for each other, I think that's the best start.
That's community.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So on that note, let's switch over to the Q&As. And so if anybody has questions, please put them in now. I will start with Peter's question. David Foster said that the most important thing to make it in the music business was networking. What's the best way to meet people in the business, find mentors, and create a network in 2021? Well, it's kind of what we've been talking about for this 45 minutes. Join.
Well, I think that everyone, every person that you would consider as a mentor probably has a social media presence. And so that is the quickest and easiest way to reach out to someone, you know, find them on Facebook and direct message them and say, hey, listen, I'm a serious fan of your work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really think, I feel like the networking part of this is even greater these days with the social media presence, you know, so that would be my recommendation.
And I can say from my viewpoint that there are a lot of people in the industry right now who want to be mentors. They're happy to mentor, they want to give back. And so reaching out to those kind of people also, I think, would probably be a positive outcome. So Danielle Norris, I am in audio within Christian community, recently moved from Fort Lauderdale to Orlando right at the start of all of this, which now I've completely lost all sense of networking. I've been out of work since the move. What are some good ways to reconnect in this new environment?
So that's kind of a local question, so I'll take that one.
Okay.
You know, I think that finding the organization. So you are in Orlando. Look for music organizing groups. Look for Christian music organizing groups. You know, I mean, you've got the kind of locus of the churches, and contact their sound people and, you know, get to know them, ask how you can help them in this moment, get involved, you know, professionally. And again, get out there and give, and that will create relationships that can build what you need locally.
Okay.
I would say to add on to that, since this is a kind of a sound question, is be humble and do whatever anybody wants to do. And especially, you know, the church market is pretty much unaffected by this whole thing. And they're doing lots of streams and, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's lots of work. I'd be the guy that would, or gal that would show up at your local church, whatever it is, and say, I will plug in cable. I'll do it for free. I'll get you a coffee, you know? And that way you can create a community by just offering to help. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh, you're going to do that for free? Rad. Come on. Let's go. So yeah, I'd say show up, show your eagerness, and be humble about it. And I don't care if you're the best mixer in the world. If you want to start a community and get to know your network around a new place, the way to do that is to be humble and to, you know, start again. Plug in mics and you know, go get the mixer coffee,
Cables.
yeah.
And the church.
Okay, this question is actually for Nathan. It's from John, and it's a two. I'm going to read you the first part and then he widens it out. So wait till I finish both. As well as quality family time, are you working on any collaborative projects with houses of worship now that the tours are off the menu at this point? Widening out my prior question, what new collaborations have you developed that would not have happened had you been on tour?
Okay, so I'll start with the second one. The collaboration with my son Noah is definitely one that grew out of our being at home and playing together. And so we we are working on material for a duo album at the moment, and
Cool.
so that's exciting to me. I mean, it's a fun project. It's I'm always here, so we can, okay, let's go downstairs, and we're down here in this very room until 4 in the morning, sometimes just having fun playing together. So that's been a lot of fun. And then uh, my oldest brother actually is a priest, and his parish is in Washington D.C., and now they have been doing services online. And I was going to say that the churches are the original community that we can all be a part of. And I picked up my first bass in the church. My first band was in the church. And the thing about that is if you make a mistake, you're forgiven, so they're very forgiving. And also you're just, it's a community of again, giving. And, so when I was playing, I was just thinking about playing, giving and not, not getting anything in return. So that really ends up being a part of the equation that I continue. My brother and I are in touch every day almost, and he's sharing his community with me, and whatever I can do for them, I will. Whenever I'm in DC, I'm there. So it's one of those things that again, I'm just sort of living in the moment and kind of taking advantage of what this time has been for me.
Right. Okay. From Rachel, what's something you suggest not to do when it comes to networking and connecting, especially when connecting with new people in your community industry, so one does not come across as too intrusive?
That's a great question.
Great.
There is a skill to know how far you're pushing somebody to get what you need from them. I personally, when someone comes to me and sends me 100 direct messages, I kind of like turn off, right? Like I'm like, oh God, this guy again, he's driving me crazy. But had he approached it with, here's whatever, 5 direct messages, and really I'm just looking for your help, and here, can I ask you a question? Is it okay to ask you a question? Those kind of things are something that you have to really learn how to do, I think. That's a people skill of knowing, when to ask a question is a people skill, and how much to ask of that question, and how much you can ask of the person that you're asking that question to. So, I always tell people always ask me like, what should I be learning in order to be a front of house guy? And my first reaction is always, you should be studying psychology 101. You should be learning how to interact with people, because that's what matters. I don't care how good of a mixer you are. If you can't be around people and you don't have those kind of skills, then you aren't going to make it, period. So it's about people skills. I think that's a great question, Rachel. Way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, from Steve, what can we do to keep this way of connecting going even when we get back to normal?
That's where I think, I don't really look to getting back to anywhere. I look to taking where we are now and moving forward.
Right.
So, if I'm connected with you today, why wouldn't I be tomorrow? So I'm in the mindset that we just, we take everything that we have now, and these are now tools for us to go into the future. We know that nothing's guaranteed. We know that there's some new skills that we have to develop because of this, and God forbid it happens again, we should be much better prepared. And I'm not just talking about paper towels and toilet paper, which everybody just went and started stocking up on. I don't know, but in other words, let's take this moment today and use it as a way to link forward.
Yeah,
I think that. Oh, go ahead, Meara. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just hoping that people remember the lessons that we're learning, individually and as communities and as an industry. The 1920s that came out of a pandemic and went, woohoo, everything's crazy. hopefully we can be a little more considered this time and go, we've identified how mutually dependent we are. We've identified how much we need each other, like Pooch is saying, on a personal level. Let's not forget the things that we've learned. Let's not forget the kindness that we've had to cultivate. And, and we should, like Nathan says, we should go forward better, but that's going to take some intention, I think.
Yeah. I think part of this in our industry in particular is that prior to this, we were bulletproof. We were like, okay, even when the rest of the country is having a hard time, us as the music industry does the events that are, raising money for whatever that was, like, a 9/11, for example. We were bulletproof. The rest of the country was stopped. We were flying to New York to do a concert to get funds. So this thing was the first time that all of us went, okay. And so I think, just like what Nathan was saying, we are going to be better for it. I think moving forward, now we're like, oh, we aren't invincible. We aren't bulletproof. Let's move forward and learn what we did from that period.
Good answers. Okay, from Julia. How do you approach networking when you don't feel confident in your work? I've done a few different things within the music industry, so I feel like a master of none at the moment. Who wants to take that one?
Like that.
I don't know if that's just specific to you, Julia. I think everybody feels like that at some point. But how do you get past that lack of confidence to be able to put yourself out in a new community?
I almost feel like, it's like developing a muscle, and then so here we have no excuses not to be able to develop that, and learn. Again, I think the idea of learning from this, and I started trying to do, when 200,000 lives were lost to the virus, my son and I were doing, 2-minute planks. We did a little challenge, and then so like after 21 days of that, it felt like I found a new muscle, and so I kind of kept doing it, and I felt like, okay, let's use this as a platform, and not to only remind ourselves of what's going on around us, but to get stronger in the process.
Good.
Yeah. I really feel like this is the perfect time to put yourself in situations that are hard, because, for instance, if you show up in, a web thing that makes you feel uncomfortable or whatever, there's ways to hide. You can mute your picture, mute your mic, and be a fly on the wall and watch that stuff happen until you can get over your uncomfortability of, whatever it is. So I try to put myself in situations that are like, this isn't fun for me, but I'm going to go do it. And, it will expand your community, I think, if you do that, if you force yourself to do that.
Okay, from Matt. My last job was in cruise ships. I now work in hospitality at a resort. How do I get back into the entertainment business after having such a large gap since being part of that part of the industry?
Yeah, I think that's what, again, that'll be a universal question that people are asking, and one of the things is that I've kept in touch with all the people that I was working with, and we kind of all say, okay, we're going through this together. And I think that when things open up, we'll be able to, at least some of those connections, networks, communities, we'll be able to say, okay, let's put one foot in front of the other. Now we can do it, So, at the moment, I know that tours that were scheduled for last summer, they scheduled for this summer. Then now they're talking about next summer, So it's like this big hold. How long can you hold your breath?
Yeah, and I think Pooch mentioned earlier that there's going to, when things do open up again, there's going to be a huge number of job opportunities.
There's opportunity. And here's why. there's only one Nathan East. And what's happened, and there's only one Pooch. And what's happened is the 5 artists that I've been juggling for years and trying to make my schedule work around are now all going to want to work at the same time. So what does that mean? That opens up 4 holes for 4 new people, right? And I think that's going to work across the board. There's going to be so much opportunity. You just have to figure out what it is to put yourself in the right place at the right time to be one of those 4 people that gets a client that I've worked with for years. You know what I mean? And it's not up to me. It'll be up to other people, management and those kind of things. But you know what I mean? It's like that will snowball, and that is exponential in the industry. So the guy that gets hired as a guitar player for such and such a band, he's normally working with 6 different bands. Well, now all 6 want to work at the same time. So it's everywhere. And so I think it's a thing. I keep telling people, keep moving, hang on, do whatever it takes right now, because when it opens, there will be opportunity.
Yeah, and for those that are just starting out and that maybe are looking more locally, just use the time, like Nathan said, use the time to reach out, connect with people, offer them help, like just wine chords, just get out there and just start creating yourself as a resource, and let them know you will do anything. You will just, you're in it, because that puts you in the spot where, as this stuff reopens and everybody's scrambling, you're right there. It's a great way to do it.
Right. Okay, this is from Paul, and this is our last question. Do you think that these struggles offer us all an opportunity to correct some bad habits that the greater music community had before COVID? If so, which ones?
Again, well, if you ever thought that it was just never going to end, and you took anything for granted, I think that's one habit that we could all learn from. That, again, we never know when it's your last gig. So that's right off the top of my head, one that I can think of.
Okay. Anybody else? Because two more questions just popped in as I try to end it. Do you guys have time for 2 more?
Sure, of course.
Okay. This is from Andrea. What would you suggest to musicians who have felt stuck since this pandemic started? Adapting to everything going virtual can get exhausting, which we have talked about. So what advice would you give to those who felt like there's been a pause in their musical progress due to new responsibilities taking over?
I've heard from people that, are like, I can't write, I can't create. I'm just sort of, dead in the water with it. And I've heard from other folks that say, my fallow periods have spawned the most creative parts of my life. So just accept wherever you are in this process. If you are in a fallow period where you're sort of paralyzed and not feeling creative and not moving forward, your roots are growing. Just give yourself some kindness and know that it will come back, and you are learning stuff you don't even know right now, and it's all going to come out eventually.
Okay. Anybody else on that one?
Yeah, I was going to say too, the other day I was invited to do a really socially distanced recording session with several young musicians. A lot of them were sons or daughters of people that I've known and worked with for years. And I thought it was really sweet, and they could really play. And so for me, it was so much fun to get an opportunity to actually play with some musicians I hadn't played with before, discovered some great talent. They had a great time. I had a great time. We were all in different rooms, masked up, but I thought it was a great kind of put your toe back in the water, a step. And they invited me to play with them, and I thought this was really good. It took some creativity. They had a nice song to work on, and so for me, it was like one of those things where a win-win for everybody.
Very cool. Okay, last question. To Pooch's point regarding everybody will want to go out at the same time, Won't that be constrained by venue availability and less venues since a bunch are dying?
That's true. However, the Live Nation and AEG, the two biggest promoters in the world, are publicly traded companies and have to answer to their shareholders. They are going to figure out a way for all of their artists to work, and whatever that means, you know, stacking it up so every night of the week at your local arena is some big hitter names. Whatever it takes, they're going to figure it out. You know, I know what you're saying, and unfortunately, we are losing smaller. You know, the community of smaller venues is taking a hit. But I think that the opportunities are going to shift a little bit, and they're going to be huge, because the companies that kind of rule the music business are all sitting there in wait, going, we're going to sort this out, man. We're going to, you know, because they need to make money and they need to be, they're held to their shareholders. So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay. So do any of you have a final word before we close this one down?
It was an honor to be here with everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And make every day count in whatever way you can.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Absolutely. And hearing that the things are the same, whether you're in a small community like Portland, or whether you're on a global stage like Nathan, or a nomad like Pooch, you know, it's like, remember that none of us are alone, and that, you know, we're all in this same moment with music together, and remember what binds us and remember what drives us, and everybody be well, we'll come through it.
Yeah. Okay, and those notes, we are done. So thank you very much for attending. I'm sure there will be a fifth in this Turmoil series, maybe next month, and hope you can come back for that one. So thanks a lot, and thank you very much to the panelists for being a part of this.
Karen.
Bye-bye.